The phone call came at 8:23 p.m. on a Tuesday night in early November. I was reviewing patient charts for my nursing shift when Dad's voice boomed through the speaker without even a greeting. Thanksgiving is set for your place again this year. 32 people confirmed so far, maybe more. You know the drill, full traditional spread, all the fixings. Aunt Martha's bringing her new boyfriend, so make sure there's enough food. Uncle Rick's family is driving down from Boston, and the Hendersons are flying in from Seattle specifically for your cooking. I held the phone away from my ear as he continued rattling off dietary restrictions and special requests. Jenny's kids only eat organic everything now, so keep that in mind. Cousin Paul is doing that keto thing, so make something without carbs. Great Aunt Dorothy needs everything pureed because of her teeth situation. And obviously we'll need the usual: turkey, ham, stuffing, mashed potatoes, sweet potato casserole, green bean casserole, cranberry sauce from scratch, dinner rolls, 3 different pies, and that apple crisp thing you make. Oh, and decorations. Make it look festive. Of course, I said automatically, the words escaping before my brain could catch up. I'll handle everything. Good girl. That's what you're good for, Dad replied with satisfaction. Mom and I are too old to deal with all that cooking stress, and you're the only one in the family who actually knows how to do it right. We'll be there around noon to supervise and make sure everything's perfect. The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone in the silence of my small apartment. 32 people. Possibly more. A full traditional Thanksgiving feast prepared entirely by me in my tiny kitchen, using my grocery budget with my time and energy. Just like every year since I'd moved out of my parents' house at 18 and foolishly volunteered to host one small family dinner that had metastasized into an annual expectation. For the past 12 years, Thanksgiving had been my personal 3-day marathon of grocery shopping, food preparation, cooking, serving, and cleaning while everyone else enjoyed the holiday. I spent hundreds of dollars on ingredients, took vacation days from my nursing job, and worked myself into exhaustion creating elaborate meals that disappeared in 30 minutes while relatives critiqued the seasoning and complained about portion sizes. My therapist Dr. Chin had been warning me about this moment for months. The holidays will be your biggest test, she'd said during our last session. Your family uses these occasions to reinforce their expectations and your compliance. When Thanksgiving comes, you'll have a choice to make. You can continue the pattern or you can break it. But understand that breaking it will require courage. He was right. As I sat in my kitchen that Tuesday night, surrounded by the same pots and pans I'd used to feed ungrateful relatives year after year, I felt something shift inside me. A quiet determination that had been building through months of therapy and self-reflection finally crystallized into action. The planning began immediately. While my family assumed I was creating shopping lists and menu plans, I was actually researching flights to Honolulu and beachfront hotel reservations. While they thought I was calculating turkey cooking times, I was calculating how much money I'd save by not feeding 32 people. While they believed I was preparing for another year of culinary servitude, I was preparing for the most liberating Thanksgiving of my life. The family group chat exploded with additional demands as the holiday approached. Can you make extra stuffing this year? The Johnsons are coming too, Mom texted. Don't forget Uncle Rick is allergic to nuts, Cousin Sarah added. Make sure there's a vegetarian option for Ashley's new girlfriend, my brother Tom chimed in. Also, can you pick up some wine? The good stuff, not the cheap bottles. Each message added to my workload while assuming my compliance. Not one person offered to help cook, bring a dish, or contribute money for groceries. The expectation was clear. Sarah would handle everything because that's what Sarah did. She was the family's unpaid catering service, existing solely to enable everyone else's holiday enjoyment. I responded to every request with enthusiastic agreement while simultaneously booking a direct flight to Maui departing Wednesday evening at 11:45 p.m. The timing was perfect. I could work my regular nursing shift Wednesday, go home to change clothes and be wheels up while my family slept peacefully, dreaming of their upcoming feast. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, the demands intensified. You'll need to start prep work early this year, Mom announced during our weekly phone call. With 32 people, you can't wait until the last minute. I suggest you take the whole week off work to get everything ready properly. Actually, I can only take Thursday and Friday off, I replied carefully. The hospital is short-staffed and I have critical patients who need continuity of care. Well, that's just irresponsible planning, Dad interjected from the background. Family comes first. Your job should understand that Thanksgiving is important. Family is definitely my priority, I agreed, which was technically true. I was finally prioritizing myself as part of a family of one. The grocery list they collectively generated was absurd. A 25-pound turkey, a 15-pound ham, 5 pounds of butter, 12 pounds of potatoes, enough ingredients for 6 different side dishes, 3 pies from scratch and special dietary accommodations for 8 different people. The estimated cost, $400, not including wine, decorations or disposable plates for the crowd. Instead of shopping for groceries, I shopped for vacation clothes. Sundresses, sandals, swimsuits, sunscreen and a good book I'd been wanting to read for months. The entire Hawaiian wardrobe cost less than feeding my ungrateful family for one meal. 1 week before Thanksgiving, the micromanagement reached fever pitch. Make sure you brine the turkey for at least 24 hours, Uncle Rick texted. Last year it was a little dry. Mom called to remind me about table settings. We'll need your dining table, the card table and the folding table from the garage. Make sure you have enough chairs for everyone. Aunt Martha sent detailed instructions for her boyfriend's food allergies. He can't have gluten, dairy, soy or anything with artificial colors. Also, he's very particular about cross-contamination. I confirmed every detail while packing my suitcase with tropical vacation clothes. The contrast was surreal. Discussing turkey brine schedules while folding bikinis, planning seating arrangements while researching snorkeling tours. 3 days before Thanksgiving, I received my hotel confirmation email for the Grand Wailea Resort in Maui. Ocean view suite, spa appointments, and dinner reservations at restaurants where I'd eat meals prepared by professional chefs who were paid for their work. The confirmation felt like a passport to freedom. Tuesday night before Thanksgiving, the final wave of demands arrived. Remember to put the turkey in the oven by 6 a.m., Dad texted at 11 p.m. And don't forget to make extra gravy this year. The kids went through 3 bowls last time. My sister Amy called at midnight. Can you make that green salad with the candied pecans? Mark really loved it last year. Also, do you have enough wine glasses? I think we'll need at least 40. I set my alarm for 4:30 a.m. Wednesday morning, but not for turkey preparation. My Uber to the airport was scheduled for 9 p.m., and I had a full day of work before my escape began. Wednesday morning arrived gray and cold, typical November weather in Virginia. I worked my 12-hour nursing shift with unusual energy, knowing it was my last day of obligation before complete freedom. My patients seemed brighter, my colleagues commented on my positive mood, and even the most difficult attending physician couldn't dampen my spirits. At 7 p.m., I arrived home to my empty apartment and began the final phase of my liberation plan. Instead of prepping vegetables and seasoning turkey, I showered, dressed in comfortable travel clothes, and did a final check of my suitcase. Sunscreen, swimsuits, resort confirmations, and a sense of anticipation I hadn't felt in years. At 9 p.m. sharp, my Uber arrived. As we drove toward Reagan National Airport, my phone buzzed with final family reminders. Don't stay up too late cooking, Mom texted. You need your energy for tomorrow. Dad added, remember to put the turkey in early. We'll be there by noon to check on everything. I turned off my phone as we pulled into the airport departure zone. The red-eye flight to Maui was surprisingly peaceful. While my family slept soundly in their beds, confident that their personal chef was dutifully preparing their feast, I was somewhere over the Pacific Ocean, watching sunrise paint the clouds in shades of pink and gold. The irony was delicious. They were dreaming of food while I was living their nightmare scenario. I landed in Maui at 6:47 a.m. local time, which was 11:47 a.m. Eastern. Back home, my family would be getting ready for their noon arrival at my apartment, expecting to find me frantically managing multiple ovens and coordinating elaborate meal timing. Instead, I was breathing tropical air and checking into a resort where my biggest decision would be beach time or pool time. At exactly noon Eastern, 7 a.m. Hawaiian time, while I was enjoying fresh pineapple and Kona coffee overlooking the Pacific Ocean, my phone exploded with incoming chaos. I turned it back on specifically to witness the moment my family discovered their feast was just a fantasy. The first message was from Mom at 12:03 p.m. We're here but your door is locked. Where are you? Followed immediately by Dad at 12:04 p.m. Your car isn't in the parking lot. Are you at the grocery store? Then confusion turned to panic as they realized the scope of the situation. Amy called 6 times in rapid succession. Tom sent increasingly frantic texts. "Where are you? People are already arriving." Uncle Rick left a voicemail. "Sarah, this isn't funny. We have 32 hungry people here and no food." But the message that perfectly captured their entitlement came from cousin Sarah at 12:18 p.m. "This is so selfish. How could you ruin Thanksgiving for everyone? What are we supposed to eat?" I sipped my tropical drink and typed a single response to the family group chat. "Currently enjoying Thanksgiving breakfast in Maui. There's a note on my kitchen counter explaining that I will no longer be providing free catering services for family events. I suggest you discover what the rest of America does on Thanksgiving. Cook your own food or make restaurant reservations. Aloha." Then I muted all notifications and ordered another passion fruit smoothie. The note I'd left in my kitchen was concise but thorough. After 12 years of providing unpaid catering services for increasingly demanding family gatherings, I have chosen to celebrate Thanksgiving in a way that brings me joy instead of exhaustion. This decision is final and non-negotiable. I will no longer be cooking for large family events. I suggest you plan accordingly for future holidays. There are excellent restaurants that accept reservations, or you could try the revolutionary concept of everyone bringing a dish to share. Happy Thanksgiving. Based on the message timestamps, chaos reigned for approximately 3 hours. 32 hungry relatives arrived at my empty apartment expecting a feast and found only a locked door and growing family panic. Some people left immediately to find restaurant reservations, mostly unavailable on Thanksgiving Day. Others attempted to organize a potluck using whatever ingredients they could gather from multiple grocery stores. A few relatives reportedly had complete meltdowns about the ruined holiday. The funniest update came from my neighbor Mrs. Patterson, who texted me later. "Your family has been pounding on your door and looking through windows for 2 hours. I told them you left yesterday with suitcases and looked very happy. They seemed confused by this information. Dr. Chin had prepared me for the guilt assault that would inevitably follow. They will attempt to make you feel responsible for their poor planning and unrealistic expectations," she'd warned. "Remember that their inability to feed themselves is not your emergency or your failure." He was absolutely right. The angry messages continued for days, escalating in both volume and vitriol. Extended family members who'd never cooked a meal in their lives accused me of destroying family traditions and betraying fundamental values. People who'd eaten my food for 12 years without contributing so much as a bag of dinner rolls suddenly became experts on family obligation and holiday responsibility. "You've always been selfish, but this is a new low," Amy texted. "Do you have any idea how many people you disappointed today?" Dad left multiple voicemails progressing from confusion to anger to threats about being cut off from the family permanently. Mom's messages alternated between guilt trips and manipulation. "Your grandmother would be ashamed of this behavior, and we raised you better than this." The message that revealed their true perspective came from Uncle Rick. "We counted on you to handle everything like always. How are we supposed to know you just abandon your responsibilities? Now we have to figure out how to cook our own Thanksgiving next year." I read these messages while floating in a crystal-clear lagoon, marveling at their complete inability to comprehend that cooking for 32 people had never actually been my responsibility in the first place. My 4 days in Maui were transformative. I ate meals prepared by skilled chefs who were compensated for their expertise. I read entire books without interruption. I took long walks on empty beaches, thinking about nothing more pressing than which restaurant to try for dinner. I slept until I naturally woke up without alarm clocks or cooking schedules. I had conversations with interesting strangers about topics that had nothing to do with food preparation or family obligations. Most importantly, I experienced what Thanksgiving could be when it wasn't a 3-day marathon of unpaid labor. Just relaxation, gratitude, and personal choice. When I returned to Virginia on Sunday evening, my voicemail was full and my apartment building's parking lot was suspiciously empty of family cars. Apparently, the Thanksgiving disaster had sent shockwaves through the extended family network, and I was now officially persona non grata until further notice. The shunning lasted exactly 3 weeks, until Mom called with a different tone entirely. "We need to talk about Christmas," she said carefully. "The family is concerned about holiday plans going forward." "I'm sure they are. I replied while unpacking tropical souvenirs. Look, maybe we didn't appreciate how much work you put into Thanksgiving over the years, she continued reluctantly. But you can't just disappear without warning. It's not fair to everyone who was counting on you. Actually, it's completely fair, I said calmly. I gave 12 years of advance notice through my consistent unpaid labor. The warning signs were there for anyone who cared to pay attention. The conversation ended with Mom hanging up in frustration, but it marked the beginning of a slow family recalibration. Over the following months, various relatives took turns calling to negotiate my return to holiday cooking duties. They offered compromises, bribes, and elaborate guilt trips designed to restore their personal catering service. What they never offered was acknowledgement that expecting one person to cook for 30-plus people without compensation or assistance might be fundamentally unreasonable. The breakthrough came 6 months later when Amy called from her own kitchen disaster. I volunteered to host Easter dinner for 15 people, she admitted with obvious exhaustion. I've been cooking for 3 days straight, spent $400 on groceries, and I still don't think I'll have enough food. How did you manage Thanksgiving for 32 people every year? Very carefully, with significant personal sacrifice and growing resentment, I replied honestly. I had no idea, she said quietly. I thought you just enjoyed it. Nobody ever asked if I enjoyed it, I pointed out. You all just assumed I was happy to give up my entire holiday weekend for your convenience. That conversation marked the beginning of actual family change. Not immediate or complete change, but gradual recognition that their holiday expectations had been unrealistic and unfair. Amy started bringing dishes to family gatherings instead of just showing up empty-handed. Tom began contributing money for groceries when someone else cooked. Even Dad grudgingly admitted that, maybe we got a little too comfortable with Sarah handling everything. The family adapted to my permanent withdrawal from large-scale holiday cooking. They hired caterers, organized potlucks, and occasionally even made restaurant reservations like normal people. Some relationships improved once the resentment and exploitation were removed. Others remained strained, particularly with relatives who couldn't adjust to treating me as an equal family member rather than unpaid kitchen staff. Christmas that year was completely different. I spent it volunteering at the hospital working with patients who had no family at all. The perspective was clarifying. I was choosing to serve people who genuinely needed help, rather than enabling healthy adults who refused to take responsibility for feeding themselves. My second Thanksgiving in Hawaii became an annual tradition. Each year, I book the same ocean view suite, eat meals prepared by professionals, and send postcards to family members featuring tropical beaches with messages like, "Grateful for boundaries," and "Thankful for self-respect." The family still occasionally mentions my abandonment of holiday traditions, but with less venom than initially. They've learned to plan their own gatherings, share cooking responsibilities, and appreciate the relatives who actually volunteer to help instead of assuming someone will handle everything. Mom recently admitted something that felt like progress. Watching everyone struggle with cooking duties makes me realize how much you sacrificed for family holidays over the years. We never said thank you enough. It wasn't a complete apology, but it was acknowledgement. My life improved dramatically after choosing my own holiday celebrations. I volunteer at the hospital during major holidays, work with families who genuinely appreciate help, and spend my vacation time on activities that bring me joy instead of exhaustion. I've traveled to 6 different countries during times I used to spend cooking for ungrateful relatives. The nursing staff always requests me for holiday shifts now because they know I'm genuinely happy to be there. You seem to actually enjoy working holidays, my supervisor observed. Most people resent giving up family time. I'm exactly where I want to be, I tell her truthfully. Sometimes former colleagues ask if I miss the big family gatherings and traditional holiday cooking. The question always puzzles me. I don't miss working for 3 days without pay to feed people who criticized my efforts and demanded more. I don't miss spending hundreds of dollars to enable other adults' helplessness. I don't miss sacrificing my holiday weekend for other people's convenience. What I discovered in Hawaii was that holidays can be peaceful, joyful, and restorative when you're not drowning in other people's expectations. Thanksgiving is actually a lovely holiday when you have time to contemplate gratitude instead of obsessing over turkey temperatures and side dish timing. Last month marked my 3rd annual Thanksgiving in Maui. I woke up naturally at sunrise, had coffee on my balcony overlooking the Pacific, spent the morning snorkeling with sea turtles, and enjoyed a gourmet dinner prepared by someone who was paid appropriately for their culinary skills. No grocery shopping, no cooking stress, no cleanup, no criticism about seasoning choices. Just pure gratitude for the courage to choose my own path after years of imposed obligations. That evening, I called Dr. Chen from my resort balcony. 3 years later, how do you feel about your decision? She asked. Like I finally understand what Thanksgiving is supposed to feel like, I told her while watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. Grateful. Peaceful. Free. The note I left in my kitchen 3 years ago was just the beginning. The real message was in the choice itself. That one person's refusal to enable dysfunction can force an entire family system to grow healthier. They learn to cook for themselves. I learned to prioritize my own well-being. That's what genuine independence looks like after 12 years of holiday servitude. Not dramatic confrontation or permanent family destruction, but quiet determination to stop accepting what was never acceptable in the first place. The meal I didn't cook was just one dinner. The authentic life I gained was absolutely everything I'd been missing while serving everyone else.
Marcus yelled, slamming the divorce papers onto the kitchen table. You're being selfish. My mother is dying, and you won't even get tested to see if you're a match. I gripped the counter, trying to stay calm. I never thought my marriage would end like this, over my decision not to donate a kidney to my mother-in-law, Diana. Marcus, please try to understand. I started, but he cut me off. Understand what, Julia? That you're letting my mother die because you're too scared? Too selfish? His face was red with anger. She welcomed you into this family, and this is how you repay her. Welcomed me? I almost laughed. Diana had spent the last 8 years criticizing everything about me, my cooking, my job, even my marriage, but that wasn't why I couldn't donate. Sign the papers, he demanded. If you won't help my mother, I want nothing to do with you. My hands shook as I picked up the pen. I could tell him the truth right now, explain why I couldn't donate. But would it even matter? He had already chosen her over me, like always. Fine, I said quietly, signing my name. I hope you and Diana will be very happy together. He grabbed the papers and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. As soon as he was gone, I sank to the floor, finally letting the tears fall. My name is Julia Chen, and 3 months ago I was diagnosed with early-stage kidney cancer. The same day Diana found out she needed a transplant, I was scheduling my own surgery to remove a tumor. I hadn't told anyone, not even Marcus. We had been trying for a baby, and I knew the news would crush him. I planned to tell him after surgery, once I had more answers, but then Diana got sick, and suddenly, everything was about her. At Sunday dinner a few weeks ago, Diana had smiled sweetly. Julia, dear, you're young and healthy. Surely you'd be willing to help your mother-in-law? Marcus had immediately agreed. Of course she will, Mom. Julia knows how important family is. I nearly choked on my wine. Family? Diana had done everything she could to ruin our marriage. She even tried to set Marcus up with someone else last Christmas, right in front of me. Now, sitting on my kitchen floor, I picked up my phone and called my doctor. Hi, this is Julia Mitchell. Can we move my surgery up? My circumstances have changed. The next few days were a blur of packing and making arrangements. I took a leave from work, telling everyone it was for elective surgery. Marcus didn't come home. He was probably at his mother's, letting her turn him against me. His sister Emma, the only person in his family who had ever been kind to me, called me in tears. Julia, please reconsider. Mom is getting worse, and Marcus is falling apart. Just get tested, maybe you won't even be a match. I gripped the phone. Emma, I can't. I'm sorry, but there are things you don't know. She hesitated. What things? Julia, whatever Mom has done. It's not about her, I said. I can't. Please trust me. There was a long pause. You're hiding something, she said softly. I can hear it in your voice. I ended the call before I broke down. Emma had always defended me, but this was my health, my choice. I didn't owe anyone an explanation. The night before my surgery, Marcus showed up. He looked awful, unshaven, exhausted. Mom's doctor says she has maybe 6 months without a transplant, he said. This is her last chance, Julia. How can you be so heartless? I stood in the doorway, not letting him in. I'm not heartless, Marcus. I literally can't donate. Can't or won't. He snapped. Forget it. I just came to get the rest of my things. The divorce will be final in 3 months. As he walked past me, I caught the scent of his mother's perfume on his shirt. Of course, he'd been staying with her, letting her comfort him over his selfish wife. Part of me wanted to tell him everything about the cancer, the surgery, the fear I had been carrying alone. But the words wouldn't come. Let him think I was selfish. Let him leave. At least then, I wouldn't have to watch him put his mother first while I fought my own battle. My surgery was scheduled for tomorrow morning. The doctor was hopeful, but there were no guarantees. I would face this alone, just like I had faced everything else since Diana came into our lives. As Marcus carried boxes to his car, I wondered if he even noticed I was gone. Would he be too busy taking care of his mother to realize his soon-to-be ex-wife had disappeared for weeks of recovery? The last thing he picked up was our wedding album. He stared at it for a long moment before dropping it into the donation pile on the curb. "Goodbye, Julia," he said coldly, not looking at me. "I hope you can live with your choice." If only he knew. The hospital room was quiet except for the steady beep of monitors and the soft footsteps of nurses. 2 weeks had passed since my surgery, and now the pathology results were finally in. Dr. Peterson stood at the foot of my bed, flipping through my chart. "The surgery was successful, Julia. We removed the tumor and the surrounding tissue. Your margins are clear," she smiled. "But I still recommend targeted therapy just to make sure we've eliminated any remaining cancer cells." Relief flooded through me. "How long will the treatment take?" 6 to 8 weeks. You'll need to rest and focus on recovery." She hesitated. "Have you thought about telling your family? Support is important during treatment." Family. The word felt empty now. Marcus hadn't reached out since he moved out. Emma had left messages, but I hadn't answered. How could I explain my absence without telling the full truth? "I'll be fine on my own," I said. "I've hired a home health nurse to help me recover." Just then, I heard a commotion outside. A familiar voice, Emma's, arguing with a nurse. "I know she's here. I saw her name on the surgery schedule. Please, I need to see my sister-in-law." My stomach dropped. Emma worked in the medical field. Of course she might have seen my name. I should have used my maiden name. Before I could react, Emma burst into my room. She froze, taking in the IVs, my pale face, the hospital bed. "Julia," her voice shook. "Oh my God, what's wrong? Why are you in the oncology ward?" Dr. Peterson glanced at me. I nodded, giving her permission to speak. There was no point hiding it anymore. "Mrs. Mitchell had a partial nephrectomy," Dr. Peterson explained gently. "We removed a tumor from her kidney." Emma's hands flew to her mouth. "Kidney cancer? But Mom needs a transplant, and you?" Her eyes widened as she put the pieces together. "You couldn't donate because you had cancer." Tears welled in my eyes. I found out the same day Deanna announced she needed a kidney. I was going to tell Marcus after my surgery, but everything happened so fast. Emma rushed to my bedside, carefully wrapping her arms around me. "Why didn't you tell us? Why did you let Marcus think you were being selfish?" I wiped my face with a tissue. Would it have mattered? He already chose Diana over me. If he knew I had cancer, he'd only feel guilty, and Diana would still make it about her. "But he's divorcing you over this. He thinks you refused out of spite." "Maybe that's easier," I said quietly. I couldn't be the donor he wanted. I couldn't be the perfect daughter-in-law Diana expected. At least this way, he doesn't have to feel responsible for me. Emma sat on the edge of my bed, struggling to take it all in. "Julia, he needs to know. Mom needs to know. This changes everything." I shook my head. Diana still needs a kidney, and I still can't give her one. Nothing's changed except now you know why. "But..." "Please, Emma," I interrupted. "I'm starting treatment soon. I need to focus on getting better, not dealing with Marcus and Diana. Promise me you won't tell them." She hesitated, torn. Finally, she sighed. "Fine. But I'm not leaving you to handle this alone. I'm staying to help whether you like it or not." True to her word, Emma was by my side for the next few weeks. She took time off work, drove me to appointments, made sure I ate properly, and sat with me during treatments. One afternoon, as we lounged in my living room watching movies, my phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. "Mom's getting worse. The doctors say she needs the transplant soon. I hope you're happy with your decision." Emma glanced at the screen and snatched the phone from my hands. "That's it. I'm telling him." No. I tried to grab it back, but the sudden movement sent pain through my side. I gasped, and Emma's anger softened. Look at you, she said gently. You're recovering from surgery, and he's making you feel guilty for something you physically can't do. This isn't fair, Julia. Life isn't fair, I said, thinking about everything that had led us here. But I made my choice. I need to deal with this on my own terms. Emma huffed. You and Marcus are both impossible. No wonder you got along so well. Despite everything, I laughed. It felt good to laugh, to have someone who understood. Later that night, after Emma left, I stared at the divorce papers on my coffee table. In less than a month, my marriage would be over. Marcus would be free to focus on his mother, never knowing how close he came to having two sick women in his life instead of one. I touched my healing incision, thinking about the road ahead. The cancer might be gone, but recovery would take time. Treatment would be tough. But somehow, I felt stronger than I had in years. I didn't need Marcus's guilt. I didn't need Diana's manipulation. I had Emma, my own resilience, and a future that, while uncertain, was still mine to face. The truth would come out eventually. Secrets like this always did. But when it did, I'd be ready. The truth came out sooner than I expected. 6 weeks into my treatment, I ran into Marcus at the hospital. I was leaving my oncologist's office when I saw him step out of the elevator, looking down at his phone. He walked right past me at first, then stopped suddenly and turned around. His eyes widened. Julia? I froze. I knew I looked different, thinner, paler, my hair not as full. I wore a loose sweater to hide the port in my chest, but there was no hiding the signs of illness. What are you? Why are you here? His gaze flicked to the sign. Oncology department. His face went pale. Before I could answer, Dr. Peterson stepped out of her office. Julia, don't forget your scan is at 9 a.m. tomorrow. We'll review the results next week to see how your treatment is working. Marcus took a step back, like someone had hit him. Treatment? Julia, what's going on? I should go, I said, trying to walk past him. He gently caught my arm. Please, I need to understand. I looked at his hand, remembering how easily you let me go before. Now you want to understand? Not when you were divorcing me or calling me selfish. His voice was shaky. Emma told Mom everything yesterday about your cancer, your surgery, why you couldn't donate. I came here today because I needed to see if it was true. So Emma had told them. I should have known she wouldn't keep it a secret forever. Well, now you know, I said. You can go back to Diana with a clear conscience. Julia, wait. His eyes were full of tears. Why didn't you tell me? I'm your husband. Soon-to-be ex-husband, I corrected. And I didn't tell you because you already made your choice. You chose Diana. Like always. He ran a hand through his hair, something he always did when he was overwhelmed. I didn't know. All this time, I thought you were being selfish, but you were actually fighting cancer alone. Not alone, I said. Emma has been helping me. He let out a bitter laugh. Emma knew before I did. Your own husband. You gave up the right to know when you threw away our marriage over a kidney I couldn't give, I said firmly. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to rest before my scan. I walked away, leaving him standing there. But this time, I was the one choosing to leave. The next week brought changes I never expected. Diana was the first to reach out. She sent me a letter, written in her neat but shaky handwriting. Dear Julia, I owe you an apology, not just for demanding your kidney, but for how I've treated you all these years. Learning about your cancer made me realize how selfish I've been. I found another possible donor, so please focus on your recovery. You don't need to carry any guilt or pressure from us. With regret, Diana. Emma later confirmed it. She actually cried, Julia, she said, shaking her head. I've never seen her cry before. Meanwhile, Marcus stopped sending angry texts about Diana's health. Instead, he sent one short message. I'm sorry. Please let me make this right. I didn't reply. I had 3 more weeks of treatment left, and my health came first. But Marcus didn't give up. He started showing up at my treatment sessions, just sitting quietly in the waiting room. He never forced a conversation. He just waited, in case I wanted to talk. After my last treatment, he was there again. This time, I was too exhausted to ignore him. Why are you here, Marcus? He met my eyes. Because this is where I should have been all along. His voice was soft. I failed you, Julia. I failed our marriage. I was so focused on Mom that I didn't see you needed me too. I sighed and sat down beside him. It's not just about the cancer. It's about how you've always put Diana first. How I always felt like I had to handle everything alone. He nodded, his eyes full of regret. I know. Mom and I had a long talk after Emma told us everything. She admitted how she treated you, how she manipulated me. She's even getting counseling. Not that it excuses what I did. No, it doesn't. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he said quietly. I just want to be here for you now, in whatever way you'll let me. Even if it's just as a friend. I looked at him properly for the first time in months. He seemed different, quieter, more present than he had been in years. I have a scan next week, I said finally. They'll tell me if the treatment worked. He waited, saying nothing. You can come if you want, I said. But just to the waiting room. His smile was small but sincere. Thank you. That's more than I deserve. As I left the hospital that day, I felt lighter. Not because I'd forgiven Marcus. That would take time. Maybe it would never happen. But I had finally put myself first. The future was still uncertain. My marriage might be over, or it might heal. Diana might change, or she might not. The cancer might be gone, or it might return. But one thing was different now. I knew my worth. I wouldn't settle for less. Not from Marcus, not from Diana, not from anyone. Sometimes, losing everything is what it takes to truly find yourself. I stared at my phone screen, reading Daniel's message. I'm leaving you for Sophia. She's 23, beautiful, and everything you're not. Don't bother coming home. She's already moved in. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across my desk as I calmly reached for my coffee. At 35, I had just received the most heartless goodbye ever. But while Daniel probably pictured me crying over his betrayal, I was logging into my security app. The hidden cameras I'd installed 2 months ago came to life. There they were, Daniel and his new girlfriend, making themselves at home in my living room. She lounged in my favorite chair, legs draped over the side, while he packed away my photos. Your wife has great taste in furniture, Sophia giggled, running her fingers over the fabric. Too bad she has terrible taste in men. Daniel chuckled, tossing a photo frame into a box. She never appreciated any of this. Always too busy working, too tired for date nights. You're different, baby. I watched them, my anger cold and steady. The cameras had captured everything for weeks, every lie, every secret meeting. But today's footage, this was the final nail in his coffin. Another text buzzed through. I'll have my lawyer contact you. Don't expect anything in the divorce, my name's on everything. You should thank me for the years I gave you. I smiled, sipping my now cold coffee. Daniel always thought I was naive. He had no idea I'd been ahead of him all along. I had noticed the signs, the late nights, the password changes, the sudden interest in the gym. But it was the dinner receipt for two, on a night he claimed to be working, that pushed me to act. I hired a security company the next day. Make them invisible, I told them as they installed cameras throughout the house. I want to see everything. And I did. I watched him sneak her in, heard their whispered plans, saw them betray me over and over again. Then another message popped up. A picture of Sophia on our bed, wearing my jewelry. She looks better in these than you ever did, Daniel wrote. I forwarded it to my lawyer, adding it to the growing file of evidence. Then I turned back to the live feed. She's not even that pretty, Sophia scoffed, flipping through my old photos. Daniel snorted, holding up our wedding picture. I was young and stupid. Thought I needed to settle down. Biggest mistake of my life. He tossed it into the trash along with everything else from our 10 years together. But I didn't feel pain, just satisfaction. Every cruel word, every smug smile, all of it was recorded. Sophia stretched out on the couch. Should we order dinner? We should celebrate our first night in our new home. Our new home. I smiled at her choice of words. They had no idea how wrong they were. The house had been my grandmother's, left to me in a trust Daniel knew nothing about. His name on the deed meant nothing, and soon he would learn that the hard way. I typed a reply to his earlier message. Thanks for letting me know. I'll be sure to forward your text to my lawyer. His response was instant. What lawyer? Don't try to play games, Olivia. You'll lose everything. I didn't bother replying. Instead, I sent the latest footage to my attorney. This is perfect, she had told me weeks ago. He won't know what hit him. I grabbed my things and walked out of my office. The real fun was about to begin. As I drove away, my phone buzzed one last time. Don't bother coming home. I changed the locks. I laughed, picturing the hidden cameras still rolling. Let him think he'd won. Let him enjoy his moment. Soon, the truth would hit him like a ton of bricks, and I'd have a front row seat to watch it all unfold. The next morning, I watched through the security feed as Daniel strolled into the kitchen, making coffee in my favorite mug. He looked so at ease, so confident. I took a sip of my hotel coffee, waiting. Right on time, the doorbell rang. I zoomed in on his face as he opened the door to a courier. "Daniel Parker?" the man asked, handing him a thick envelope. Daniel signed, still smug, until he read the first page. His expression shifted from confusion to shock. "What is it, baby?" Sophia called from the kitchen, still draped in my silk robe. "It's from Olivia's lawyer," he mumbled, flipping through the pages. His face paled. "This can't be right." Sophia peered over his shoulder. "What's wrong?" "The house. It's not mine. It's in a trust, Olivia's trust. And she has evidence." Sophia stiffened. "Evidence of what?" Right then, my phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. "What kind of game are you playing?" I replied, "No game. Check your email." Through the cameras, I watched his hands shake as he opened it. Sarah had sent a short clip, a preview of the footage we had collected. "Is that us?" Sophia gasped, staring at the screen. "Have we been recorded?" Daniel turned red with anger. "You've been spying on me? In my own house?" I couldn't help but smile as I texted back, "Not your house, remember? And yes, every word, every lie, every betrayal, it's all on camera." He started pacing, raking his hands through his hair. Sophia, once so confident, slumped onto the couch. "She can't do this," she whispered. "It's illegal or something, right?" "Actually," I typed, "it's perfectly legal to have security cameras in my home, especially when I had reason to suspect theft." Daniel read the message out loud. "Theft. The jewelry you gave her. The artwork. My grandmother's antiques that mysteriously vanished. All recorded." Sophia yanked off my necklace, setting it on the table with shaking hands. Daniel turned to her, his voice cold. "I think you should leave." "But you said." "Get out," he snapped. Tears streamed down her face as she grabbed her things and rushed out. The fearless mistress, suddenly just a scared girl. Daniel sank onto the couch, staring at his phone. Another message came through. "You ruined everything. I loved you, Olivia. Why did you have to do this?" My anger flared. "Loved me? Is that what you call moving your girlfriend into our home? Giving her my things? Mocking our marriage?" I saw him read my message, his jaw tightening. He was trapped and he knew it. "What do you want?" he finally texted. "You out of my house tonight. Take only your things. My lawyer will handle the rest." He sat there for a long moment, then started packing, his movements stiff with frustration. Every few minutes he would stop, glance around the room, then keep going, shoulders slumped. A new text from Sarah. He called his lawyer. "They're advising him to settle. The footage is too damaging." I smiled. Daniel had always thought I was weak, that I wouldn't fight back. Instead, I had collected every piece of evidence while he blindly walked into his own downfall. By evening, he took one last look around the house before leaving, his key resting on the counter, a silent admission of defeat. As his car disappeared, I sent one final message. "Goodbye, Daniel. I hoped she was worth it." Then I blocked his number, closed the security app, and poured myself a glass of wine. Tomorrow, I take back my home. But tonight, I celebrated my freedom. Game over. And he never even knew he was playing. 1 month later, I sat in my freshly redecorated living room. Every trace of Daniel was gone, along with the weight of his betrayal. The divorce had gone quickly. Amazing how cooperative a cheating husband becomes when faced with video proof of his lies and stolen things. I kept the cameras running until everything was final, just in case. They caught Daniel sneaking back in one night, my lawyer handled it, and Sophia showing up a week later, demanding jewelry Daniel had given her. That footage also went straight to the authorities. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "Daniel's company found out he was sleeping with an intern. Turns out you weren't the only one he lied to. He's been forced to resign." I smiled, not out of revenge, but because it felt right. The truth always catches up. That afternoon, the security company came to remove the cameras. As one of the workers uninstalled a hidden bookshelf camera, he said, "We set these up all the time, but most people don't actually catch anything important. You were smart. You saw the signs and acted." I thought back to those first red flags, the late nights, the secretive behavior, the strange receipts. How many people ignored those signs, hoping they were wrong? The doorbell rang. I glanced at my new standard security camera and saw Lisa standing there with a bottle of wine. "Coming," I called, letting her in. "This place looks amazing," she said, admiring the changes. Gone were the heavy curtains Daniel had insisted on. Sunlight streamed through the sheer panels, shining on artwork I had picked myself. My grandmother's antiques, which I hidden away when I first suspected Daniel's plans, were finally back where they belonged. As we sat on the couch with our wine, Lisa asked, "How are you really?" I thought for a moment before answering. "Honestly, better than I've been in years. No more pretending. No more ignoring the obvious or making excuses for someone else's actions." "Heard anything from Sophia?" I shook my head. "After the jewelry thing, nothing. She's probably found another married man to go after." Just then, another text from Sarah came through. "Final paperwork is signed. The house is officially yours. Congrats. You're free." Free, a simple word, but it carried so much weight. "You know what's funny?" I said, swirling my wine. "Daniel always treated me like I was clueless, like I couldn't see what was happening. But I saw everything. I was just waiting for the right time to act." Lisa raised her glass. "To seeing clearly." "To seeing clearly," I echoed, clinking my glass against hers. That night, after Lisa left, I walked through my house, truly mine now. The cameras had recorded Daniel's betrayal, but they had also captured something else, my strength. I opened my laptop to save the final footage before deleting it, not to relive the pain, but to remember how far I had come. The last clip showed Daniel leaving, his shoulders slumped, his arrogance finally gone. He thought he was writing the end of our story. He didn't realize he was just setting the stage for my new beginning. Then, one final text, an unknown number. "I'm sorry. I know it doesn't matter now, but I'm sorry for everything." I didn't answer. Some messages don't deserve replies. Some apologies come too late to mean anything. Instead, I stepped onto my balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in golds and pinks. The cameras were gone, their job done. They had shown me the truth, and they had helped me move forward. The evening air carried the scent of the flowers I had planted, new life growing where the past had once been. Just like me. Tomorrow would bring new adventures, new possibilities. But tonight, I celebrated my freedom. "We don't need all that legal paperwork, Emily. Just trust me," Marcus said, leaning casually against the kitchen counter. He acted like he hadn't just suggested moving his mistress into his new apartment while keeping me stuck in our marriage. "You can stay here, and everyone wins." I gripped my coffee mug, letting its warmth steady me as I studied my husband of 8 years. He stood there, confident in his expensive new suit, one I probably helped pay for, thinking I'd go along with his little plan. "My name is Emily. I'm 34, and I was watching my husband try to have it both ways. The irony wasn't lost on me that we were in the Victorian house my grandmother left me, the same grandmother who taught me about dignity and self-respect. So let me get this straight," I said calmly. "You want to move in with Jessica, your 26-year-old assistant, but you don't want a legal divorce or financial settlement." Marcus grinned, mistaking my question for agreement. "Exactly. No lawyers, no court drama. You keep the house, I get my freedom. It's perfect." I sipped my coffee, thinking about the legal document sitting upstairs, the one Marcus never read when my grandmother passed away. He was too busy with a very important deal to even attend her funeral. "And what about our joint accounts, the investments we made together?" I asked. He waved a hand dismissively. "We'll figure that out later. Jessica and I found a great apartment, and the lease starts next week. I just need to know you won't make this difficult." The morning light shone through the stained glass windows, casting colorful patterns on the hardwood floor. My grandmother had restored those windows herself. I remembered cleaning them with her as she shared lessons on family, loyalty, and self-respect. "You know," I said, rinsing my mug, "Grandma Rose always said trust is earned, not given." Marcus rolled his eyes. "Not everything has to be a lesson from your grandmother, Emily. This is about happiness. Jessica makes me happy. Can't you understand that? I dried my hands, thinking of the clause Grandma Rose had added to her will, the one she explained to me years ago with a knowing smile. Sometimes, dear, she had said, the best way to protect yourself is to let people think they're getting what they want. All right, I said, turning to face Marcus. No legal paperwork. No divorce. You can move in with Jessica next week. His face lit up. I knew you'd understand. This is why you're different from other women. So practical, so reasonable. He didn't notice the small smile on my lips. Marcus never was good at reading people, especially women. That's why he never understood my grandmother, and why he never bothered to read the details of the inheritance. I'll start packing tonight, he said, checking his expensive watch. Another thing I helped him afford. Oh, and don't worry about the joint account. I'll still cover my share of the house expenses. I nodded, watching him practically skip out of the kitchen, already texting Jessica about their victory. As his footsteps disappeared upstairs, I walked into my grandmother's old study. Now my study. I opened the bottom drawer and pulled out the leather folder containing her will. On page 6 was the clause she had added, in her careful handwriting. If the spouse of the inheritor abandons the marriage without legal dissolution while maintaining financial ties, all joint assets shall be automatically frozen and placed in trust. I traced my fingers over her signature. Grandma Rose had seen through Marcus the first time she met him. She knew his type, charming, ambitious, always looking for an easy way out. That's why she had put this clause in place, along with several others Marcus was about to discover. Thanks, Grandma, I whispered, listening to Marcus hum as he packed. He had no idea what was coming. I picked up my phone and sent a quick email to Mr. Patterson, my grandmother's lawyer. It's time. Marcus is moving out Monday. Please proceed with Protocol R. His reply came within minutes. Everything is prepared, Emily. Your grandmother would be proud. I smiled, thinking about how shocked Marcus would be when he learned what keeping things simple really meant. From upstairs, I heard him laughing on the phone, probably with Jessica, celebrating his win. Let him laugh. Monday was coming. Monday arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air my grandmother had always loved. I sat in my study, watching through the window as Marcus loaded the last of his boxes into his BMW. He'd been cheerful all weekend, acting as if he were doing me a favor by leaving. I left my keys on the counter, he said, stepping back inside. I'll transfer my share of the house expenses tonight. See, we can be civil about this. I nodded. Of course. Have a good life, Marcus. He hesitated, maybe surprised by how calm I was. But then his phone buzzed, probably Jessica, and he gave me a quick wave before walking out, leaving behind 8 years of marriage without a second glance. I waited until this card disappeared before texting Mr. Patterson. He's gone. His reply came instantly. Excellent. Protocol R is now active. Give it about an hour. I made myself tea in my grandmother's old porcelain set and settled in to wait. The house felt peaceful, not empty. The clock on the wall, the one my grandmother had restored, ticked steadily, marking the minutes. 53 minutes later, my phone rang. Marcus's name flashed on the screen. Emily. His voice was panicked. Something's wrong with my cards. They're all being declined, even my ATM card. That's strange, I said, sipping my tea. Did you call the bank? I'm at the bank right now. They're saying all our joint accounts are frozen. Something about a trust? What did you do? I could hear the frustration in his voice, already blaming me instead of himself. Typical. I didn't do anything, Marcus. It's from Grandma Rose's will, the one you never read because you were too busy at the funeral. A long pause. What are you talking about? There's a clause in the inheritance, I explained. If a spouse leaves the marriage without a legal divorce but keeps financial ties, all joint assets are frozen and placed in a trust. Page 6, if you're curious. Silence. I could picture him standing in the bank, his face turning red as he realized what had happened. You can't be serious, he finally sputtered. That's not legal. It is. Grandma Rose had excellent lawyers. If you had paid attention to the estate meetings, you'd know that. She put this clause in place to prevent, well, exactly what you tried to do. But what about my apartment? Jessica's waiting for me. I need to pay the deposit today. I took another sip of tea. That's unfortunate. Maybe you should have thought of that before deciding to keep things simple without legal paperwork. Emily, be reasonable. His voice shifted to his usual smooth, persuasive tone. Maybe I was too hasty about moving out. We can talk. Actually, I interrupted, there's more. The only way to unfreeze the accounts is to either go through a legal divorce with proper asset division or sign an agreement to attend marriage counseling. I heard him suck in a sharp breath. Marcus hated therapy. He always said it was for weak people who couldn't fix their own problems. You planned this, he accused. You and your grandmother set me up. No, Marcus, you planned this. You wanted to move in with Jessica while keeping me financially tied to you. Grandma Rose just made sure there were consequences. In the background, I heard Jessica's voice asking what was wrong. The irony made me smile. He would now have to explain to his new girlfriend that his wife's grandmother had outsmarted him. This isn't over, he snapped. You're right, I said. It's not over until you either divorce me properly or agree to counseling. Your choice. Mr. Patterson has the paperwork ready for both. And Marcus, the longer you wait, the more the trust earns interest. Granville was very thorough. I ended the call and walked to the window. The autumn leaves were turning gold and red, just like my grandmother had loved. Autumn shows us how beautiful it is to let things go, she used to say. My phone buzzed with a text from Mr. Patterson. Marcus just called. He's upset. Should I send him the full terms of the trust? I smiled. There were plenty more surprises waiting for Marcus in that document. Yes, I replied. I think it's time he learned what keeping things simple really means. Outside, the breeze carried a few leaves from the old maple tree my grandmother had planted years ago. Its roots were deep, just like her wisdom. Marcus was about to learn that some lessons come with a hefty price. 2 weeks later, I sat across from Marcus in Mr. Patterson's office. His hands shook as he signed the divorce papers. Gone was his expensive suit. He now wore wrinkled khakis and a faded polo. His hair was messy, and dark circles shadowed his eyes. The past 2 weeks had been rough for him. Without access to our joint accounts, he had to move back in with his parents. Jessica quickly lost interest when she realized their luxury apartment dreams were over. He also discovered another surprise. Most of his investments were tied to joint assets, which were now frozen under the trust. Initial here, Mr. Patterson pointed, and here. This confirms you agree to the asset division. Marcus clenched his jaw as he signed. The terms were fair, exactly what he would have gotten with a proper divorce from the start. But now he had no power, no secret funds, and no choice. You must be happy, he muttered, avoiding my eyes. You and your grandmother planned this all along. Actually, I said, Grandma Rose thought better of you than you deserved. The trust had a reconciliation option. Counseling, remember. You chose this, just like you chose to miss her funeral for a business deal. Mr. Patterson cleared his throat. Everything is in order. Mrs. Walker, you'll keep the house and your personal accounts. Mr. Walker, your share of the assets will be transferred within 48 hours. As we stood to leave, Marcus lingered at the door. I don't understand, he said, confused. Why didn't you tell me about the clause when I first said I was moving out? I thought about all the times he ignored my grandmother's wisdom, skipped family dinners, and made me feel small for valuing tradition over his idea of success. Would you have listened? I asked. He had no answer. Walking out of the office, I felt lighter than I had in years. The crisp autumn air smelled of fallen leaves and new beginnings. My phone buzzed. A text from my best friend, Anna. Done? Ready for that bottle of wine? Come over, I replied. I have a story to tell you. That evening in my grandmother's, my study, Anna and I toasted to fresh starts. I told her everything. Marcus's plan, the trust clause, and his downfall. Your grandmother was brilliant, Anna said, raising her glass. She protected you even after she was gone. I smiled, touching the leather folder that held her will. She understood people better than they understood themselves. She saw through Marcus from the start. What about Jessica? Anna asked. Did she really dump him over the apartment? I laughed. Yep. She didn't want to live with his parents while he sorted things out. Last I heard, she's dating one of the partners at his firm. Karma, Anna grinned, pouring more wine. Looking around the study, I felt my grandmother's presence. The room held her favorite books, old photographs, and pieces of a life well lived. She always said real wealth wasn't just money. It was wisdom, self-respect, and knowing when to stand your ground. You know what's funny? I said, running a finger along the spine of her favorite book. Marcus kept saying he wanted to keep things simple. In the end, that's exactly what happened, just not the way he planned. Anna raised her glass. To Grandma Rose, the queen of long game revenge. Not revenge, I corrected, smiling. Justice. She always said there's a difference. Later that night, after Anna left, I sat in my grandmother's rocking chair by the window. The moonlight streamed through the stained glass, casting soft patterns on the floor. In my hands, I held the last letter she'd written me. My dearest Emily, it read. Strength isn't about never getting hurt. It's about knowing how to protect yourself. Some people will take advantage of your kindness. Let them think they're succeeding, right up until they learn their lesson. I folded the letter and looked at her portrait. Her eyes twinkled with that mix of wisdom and mischief. Thanks, Grandma, I whispered. For everything. Outside, the autumn wind rustled through the trees, carrying away the last traces of my life with Marcus. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new adventures. But tonight, I celebrated the wisdom of a woman who had known exactly what I would need, long before I did. Sometimes the best endings aren't about winning or losing. They're about knowing your worth and walking away from those who never saw it in the first place.